In this video I will show you how I remade Light Switch by Charlie Puth. All the sounds can be downloaded on my website, first link in the description. My name is Matt Flank, let's get started. Let's start off with the drums, since those were the easiest to remake. I actually didn't remake them, I resampled them. In the very end of Light Switch, there is a little part in which the drums are playing on their own, and there you can easily sample the drums. I put them in a drum rack, made a hi-hat and operator, this one, and called it a day. Both the bass accent and the bass and the synthesizer are made in Serum. But I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of telling you the value of each knob, I'm going to show you my thought process behind making and remaking these sounds, how I do it and how you can do it as well. If you want to see the exact values and have these presets, they will be on my website, first link in the description. So let's start off with the bass. This is what the bass sounds like. Obviously the first thing you want to do is rewrite the bass line. I did this in MIDI, but you can also play it on a keyboard. So this is what the bass line looks like. You can copy it if you want. And the sound is very simple. So the first thing I do obviously is listen to the song. Why you calling at 11:30 when you only... So I first like to listen to what kind of waveform this sound is based on. And for this bass, I heard it was a saw wave. So I added a saw wave, tuned it down 2 octaves, and then added a filter. So this is what it sounds like without the filter, then with. If you listen to the original again, you can already hear it is pretty close. Why you calling at 11:30? So then to finalize the sound, I added some distortion. I added a tube algorithm, turned up the drive and mix all the way, and then used a post filter. So what this means is if I select post, the distortion will be applied first and then the sound will be filtered. If I select pre, the filter will be applied first and then the distortion will come after. If I set it off, there will be no filter. If you listen closely to the bass, and especially right there where there is an accent note, one more time, you can hear that this note is a little bit different than the rest of the bass. It is wider in my ears, it sounds a little bit more detuned, it sounds like it has more voices, and it's overall a little bit fatter sound. While the main bass is more mono sounding, this sounds way wider. I first tried experimenting with automating the filter for certain notes, but I noticed that it is just not quite the same sound. So to remake this sound, I could start from scratch, but what I did is I started with a preset. I used a sound from my Tech House Bass Essentials pack for Serum. One of those presets was really similar to the sound that I needed, so I just had to tweak that preset. When making bass sounds, I like to stick to the basic shapes because they usually sound really good and that is what most people use. Also, when using a hardware synthesizer, usually stick to the basic shapes. So I have a saw wave and a sine wave, both tuned down, both detuned. And then the envelope is really important for this. It's a really short, plucky sound. So we have one master envelope and then we have one envelope controlling the filter. If we take off the filter, this is what it sounds like. Then with the filter, but without the envelope, and then with the envelope. You can hear how the envelope really adds that punch. Then we have some effects, distortion, an EQ, a compressor, some reverb, a really short reverb as you can see, and some chorus. So if I didn't have a preset that sounded like this, the way that I would remake this bass sound is by listening very closely and try to determine what basic shapes, so what basic waveforms is the sound made up of. Does it sound like a saw wave? Does it sound like a sine wave? Does it sound like a distorted sine wave? Does it sound like a square wave? And if you're beginning or if you're new to this can be really difficult to hear the difference. But try to start with really basic sounds that don't have too much to it, and try to remake those. And eventually you will be able to recreate more difficult sounds, more complex sounds. Like for example the pad. This is way more complex. Let's take a listen to the original first.
Why you calling at 11:30?
So when remaking this sound, one of the main things that spoke to me was the wah-wah effect.
Why you calling?
To make a wah-wah effect, you need a filter that is being automated. So in Serum, I'm just going to open a new track to showcase this. Even if we have a very simple sound, so just the initial Serum preset, if I add a filter to it, so this is what the initial preset sounds like. If I add a filter to it and modulate it manually, so a bandpass filter, add some resonance, and if I do this, you can already hear that that is kind of the sound that we need. I haven't done anything, this is the init preset. To remake the sound, I tried listening to the basic shapes again, to what waveforms can I hear. If you listen really closely, you can hear a sine wave. So if I just play the sine wave, can you hear this in the original? So that is what I heard. And then obviously this was not everything, so I added a second oscillator. I thought I heard a saw wave, but instead of using the basic shapes saw wave, I used the hyper saw wave. So I added some unison to both oscillators, and this is what it sounds like now. You might think that's not even close, but what if we add the wah-wah? So for the wah-wah, I added an envelope, added it to the frequency just like I showed you before, and then we get the wah-wah effect. What I also did is I added some noise. And then finally for some effects I added some multiband compression, some reverb, EQ, and another filter to reduce some of the high frequencies because there were too many. As you can hear, way better. And that is how I remade Light Switch by Charlie Puth. You can get all of these sounds on my website, mattflank.com, and if this is something you want to see more of, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comment section below what song I should do next. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt Flank. Peace out.